Hi, I'm Lester Aponte. I'm a member of the board of the Latino Equality Alliance, and today we're having a town hall meeting to discuss with the community our options in terms of repealing Proposition 8. Equality California has been doing a series 12 of these town hall meetings, and we're trying to decide if we want to pursue a proposition on the ballot in November 2012 to repeal Proposition 8 by a vote of the voters in the state of California.
We're here to get your feedback, your input, your opinions on the best way to repeal Prop 8.
This may all be resolved by early next year. This may not all be resolved by early next year. The court may rule against us. They may say, okay, they do have standing and Judge Walker was wrong. Proposition 8 is perfectly fine. And if you want to get rid of it, you'll have to go ask the voters. That could happen. Or they could rule for us and say they do have standing, but it's unconstitutional. This then goes up to the U.S. Supreme Court, where we know there are 4 justices who not only believe that marriage equality is not a right, they believe that we LGBT people have no rights at all. That's what Justice Scalia has said, and he's got 3 votes on top of that for him. And we don't know how any of the other 5 are going to vote. So that's a risky proposition, to say the least.
In other aspects of religious ceremonies, the priests are already, I feel like the people, we understand that they don't have to do anything they don't want to do, and the second marriage is supported by federal and state law and not supported by a religious entity. So I'm just a little confused, I think.
Actually, the exit polls that were done after Prop 8 and a lot of the fieldwork that's been done since has shown that there was a lot of voters who believe that if gay marriage is allowed in California, that their churches will be forced to actually celebrate those marriages. And in fact, some of the priests, or maybe not the priests, but some pastors were telling them that you need to vote against this because otherwise you will have gay marriages at your church.
I mean, your point is right, is that they wouldn't be forced to anyway, but including language about religious freedom was based on, this shows it somewhat, a prior poll that we did showed it fairly dramatically. When you add that language, it really helps. One of the things to remember in Prop 8, we didn't write the language. We had no control over it. We were being purely responsive. In an affirmative initiative, we would use language, and we did this before we proposed 2 years ago, that everyone that has been kind of tested, that everyone agrees is language based on lots of work done all around the country that people are more receptive to.
If you went the court route, that potentially resolves things with the finality. If you go the ballot route, it could volley back and forth from election to election. Is that potentially correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now, the court route, yes. I mean, the court, we're going to get a yes or no decision ultimately on the Prop 8. As Lester said, it depends how long that takes, number one. And as wonderful as the district court decision was, we're essentially relying on Kennedy's vote plus 4 others on the Supreme Court. We don't know how they're going to vote. There are serious long-term consequences to a bad Supreme Court decision. If the Supreme Court were to say that Prop 8 was constitutional on the merits, that decision probably would not be reversed for 10, 15, 20 some years. Folks will remember Bowers versus Hardwick, which said that sodomy was, could be banned under the, the sodomy laws were not unconstitutional. That took about 20 years to get reversed in Lawrence versus Texas. So the consequences of an adverse Supreme Court decision are very serious. It's long-term and would impact everyone in the whole country. Losing a ballot proposition would be costly and horrible and awful. It would not have any, would have no ramifications for the rest of the country and would not prevent us from going back 2 years later, for example. I mean, it's not the optimal situation, not what I would recommend per se, but that's, I think, something to think about is that a court case is dramatically different than a ballot loss or victory.
There's nothing legally or practically that prevents someone from bringing a ballot proposition after we win. But, practically speaking, the Mormons and a lot of their supporters took a big hit with Proposition 8, and the last thing they want to do is to continue to spend money on this over and over again. Even the head of the Family Research Council has said, I think we've lost this battle. I don't think they're going to be doing this over and over again.
If we go to the ballot and lose or win, whichever, that I guess if we lose, there would be no repercussions other than a lot of spent energy and time and money. But would the court case need to continue going? I mean, technically, we could win, and the court case would still continue, and it would still end up at the Supreme Court, and we could still lose it all there.
We don't know how the case is going to come out, I guess is the theme here, but if we repeal Proposition 8 on November 2012, then the case before the federal courts becomes moot, meaning there is no need to be decided because there's no longer a Proposition 8. So if we win, there's no case left.
How do you feel that redistricting is going to take a play in 2012? I felt like in 2008, we lost a lot of talented people and a lot of resources to the presidential campaign, and I have a fear that we may lose talented people and resources again in 2012 due to the redistricting and seats changing and people trying to keep their seats. So how do you guys feel that that'll take effect in the 2012 decision?
We obviously don't know exactly how redistricting is going to play out. We do know a couple things. One is that Barack Obama has shifted from opposition to same-sex marriage to an evolving position, which is significant and was very significant in terms of, I mean, I got 2 robocalls myself on election day quoting Obama. That's not something they're going to be able to use in the same way now. We may see further movement from the White House. The second issue is that to the extent to which we're doing something affirmative, I think that will mobilize our community and our allies differently than just being responsive.
We are going to face challenges even if we win at the ballot in 2012, hypothetically, down the road if we don't have a sustainable solution in the courts. And so we thought, you know, who can we look to that actually has served as a model to continue to push back against opposition and protect their rights and their freedoms, and that's the reproductive justice movement. Because time and time again, what we see is the opposition trying to really deteriorate the resources and the infrastructure of the reproductive justice movement, and time again at the ballot and with the people, they prevail. Reproductive justice advocates prevail. So we thought it's a natural fit if we want to work with communities of color, in particular the Latino community, to adopt some of the best practices of reproductive justice groups, specifically Planned Parenthood. And they have a really incredible model, an outreach model. It's a peer-to-peer education model called the Promotora model. And they basically work with outreach workers who are homegrown in their neighborhoods and in their communities, in their churches, within their families, to actually have a paradigm shift within themselves after receiving sufficient training and education on a given issue, to go out and have those hard conversations and to change attitudes within their communities.
I think we could have our own Save the Children, because a lot of kids are getting bullied in schools, and maybe you have your own Save the Children. We use our own language against them as far as, well, we're going to save them if we treat everybody equally, which they should be, and start giving them equal rights, and we take the sting out of it. I mean, maybe, you know, we use our own Save the Kids and from getting bullied and beaten up and treated horribly in schools, and that's a huge problem in schools right now. There's a huge campaign about these kids are going on the internet and just saying, stop bullying, it's mean, you know, and maybe we have our own Save the Kids.
For those of you who remember, for instance, Anita Bryant, the Anita Bryant days, what was the name of her campaign? Save the children. Save the children. Save the children. So that we can talk a little bit later about why that is effective, but there are folks around the country, we come together on a regular basis. There are a number of researchers, psychologists, etc., and other experts that are doing research and trying to find a way to inoculate against that particular message. So this is not a message that was invented around Prop 8. This is a long-term issue for the LGBT movement.
The work Equality California has done around Harvey Milk Day and the current Leno bill to include teaching about LGBT issues in schools has raised this issue, hopefully taking some of the sting out of it. But it also is, and it's been such critical work, you know, we could possibly see a ballot initiative wanting to eliminate prevent all teaching of LGBT issues, you know, kind of a save our children from learning about, you know, homosexuality in schools initiative brought by the other side. So you know, we could be playing defense again, regardless of whether we want to be at the ballot box or not.